2nd, 2013. We are being filmed. Let the record show that the meeting starting at 6:37. Quickly to run, first of all, welcome everyone. So we have several visitors and guests. Is there any public comment?
Public comment?
Yes, this is the time for public comment.
I don't even know where to begin. Without getting frustrated and emotional. I sit here with this letter in hand that says you're open for the full year. December 21st, 2012. Basically says we'll run all the way till June. I guess first I need to know what happened with that. I know I wasn't involved in every meeting because I work. But I have a son who has Asperger's. The kid hasn't stopped thinking about this. As I said, I can't. But I'm sure most of you being teachers know that the biggest thing with Asperger's is change. Now, I can handle change. My 12-year-old daughter can handle change. If she had to go to a different school, she would adapt. My son can handle change. It's difficult for him. There's a routine that he's placed in, feels safe. He asks me about it every day. But I'm probably talking to the wrong people, but because I'm sure every one of you wanted to stay open. So I'm here because I promised him I'd fight. I mean, you guys know Jordan. I can't put him in a school like O'Malley, a piece of red meat to the wolves. It just won't work. Everybody says, what about Rockport? Similar situation. I mean, it's changed. It's a routine. It's what you feel comfortable with. I plan on going beyond this and calling in to the people I need to call in. I've got names, I got numbers, but it just breaks my heart that he's just worried constantly. I really don't even know what decision to make with him. The thing that keeps popping into my head is homeschool, right? Until the end of the year and then figure it out. But once again, a kid with ADHD, Asperger's, social is one of the biggest issues. So do I pull him back from what he's learned socially because of it? I don't even know where all this fits in, the politics of it all. I understand about enrollment and money and price per head and all that. But as I said, I know each and every one of you want the school to stay open, so it's tough to tell you guys. I mean, I know some of you guys pretty well, and you know the love I have for my child. So I sit here. I mean, and that's why I'm here. Just looking for options. I mean, I'm going to protect my child no matter what, and if it is homeschool, then fine. If it's getting a group of people to kind of create a little house on the prairie, then maybe that's what we do. We find a space and we get a couple teachers that we pay out of our own pockets and we take care of our kids. I mean, it's really all I can say. I mean, that's why I'm here. I thought I could have fought somebody, but you guys want the school open too. And there's nobody here, right? Is there anybody here from, who? The camera?
He doesn't want to,
Huh?
he doesn't want to spoken.
Oh, this guy here? But does he work for, but does he have a say?
There's nobody here from the state.
That's what I want to know. Yeah. I don't even know, I mean, what's it take to make a change? So even if there's a change, teachers are already looking for jobs, and I'm sure it's brittle and it's falling apart already. So, how do you, so now I guess, fight the good fight, as I told my son, but I gotta tell him now we gotta find solutions, because, and maybe it'll be a life lesson for him, but so what happens to the space? I know it must cost a lot of money to rent, right? But whose space is this? The charter school rented it?
Yeah.
And that was paid on a monthly basis, not paid up front? Yeah, and it's high. And who owns this building?
Let's see, Cape Ann Medical LLC is the name of the company.
And what kind of heart do they have? Are they business?
Well, we shouldn't be doing a two-way exchange because this is a board meeting. This is your public comment time. But
I guess and I'll be quiet now. My thought was, can we rent a room, 2 rooms, and have parents pay out of their pocket? That's all. That's what I was getting at. So it's still the same place that you're dropping your child off. He's still seeing some very familiar faces, and he's still learning. So, I mean, if you can talk on that, I don't even know if that's an option, but thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing your child here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just as a response in public comment, that it's important to know that the landlord has worked with us.
Let me interrupt the conversation, and I don't care if it's not supposed to be 2 ways. What are we going to be hauled into court? I think if you're asking for some advice, I would meet with the special ed director in the Gloucester school system and sit down, and maybe there could be some solution and help both by the school system and the state. To help your son. That's the most important thing, is your son. The people in this room, this board and teachers, I mean, we feel like you do, except maybe for that gentleman right there. But what we really would like to do is make sure you get help. And that's what I would do if I were in your shoes.
Thanks. I'm going to do that too.
Yeah,
And I'm going to take it away. My sister's a teacher, 30 years in the school system. She teaches at Gloucester High.
So she'll know how to.
I got people. And then my other ones is.
And I hope
Yeah.
you reach a resolution.
Thank you.
Because the kids are the most important thing to us, the teachers, the board. It's all about kids. Unfortunately, a lot of people who are against this situation didn't put the kids first, and they are.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
So
Again,
Frank, just
we have
to finish the point I'm trying to make,
Thank
the landlords actually worked with us
Yeah.
every step along the way and made huge concessions. This is a businessman right from the day the school opened and beforehand at significant cost to himself personally. So I just wanted to note that,
Foster guy whose name is Nick.
and the other thing would be just to say that I know there's a group of parents who are very interested in what you just suggested.
Right.
That are looking to, once everyone gets back from the break, some of them have been conversing over the break, looking at a homeschooled environment that would allow some of the teachers and students to continue to work together. And they're wanting to explore that and look into it. So I think Travis said that, president of the PTO, I think he's been in contact with some of the families, but there's going to be a group working on that.
And how do I find that? How do I
I'll make sure you connect up.
You have my
with them.
number.
Yeah.
Give it to them.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just want to, sorry. Okay.
I just wanted to say how deeply moving I was by your words. I had a son who had cerebral palsy and was very unsuited for a normal school condition. I've seen him in this school, one of the things that, for all our ups and downs, one of the things that we have achieved that I think a lot of people didn't really recognize was what a good place this was for kids who were really different. I think I don't have a snappy 3-point program for what you and the other parents can do, but I just think it's terribly important as we're having this meeting for everybody to start with your words echoing in their head. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Last thing, Frankie, I'd like to say is I hope that you will come, and that other members of the community will come to another Board of Education meeting at some point and use the public comment period and use the political process, which has not helped us, to make sure that they have a better understanding of a process that fails to put kids first. If you put a process in place which causes an immediate impact to enrollment, and then you tie the funding only to enrollment, then you put a school at risk immediately when you treat it in the way that this school is being treated, both from its first days before it opened and particularly in these last few weeks. And that process has to change. I can't believe that the state will not make adjustments so that no school is ever put in a position of actually being closed down and forced to close down in the middle of the year. And I think your story is particularly compelling. But anyone who doesn't think that this is difficult for every child in the school, and the state should be held accountable, in my opinion, for a process which is not humane and not supportive of kids. And I think it's appalling, quite frankly. And the only way to change that is to force the government to be responsible for their actions. And hopefully that message will come across clearly. So I hope you'll come again and make that clear.
I will.
Any other public comment? Shane?
I'd like to thank every single teacher and every single board member for all the energy and love and support, dedication, every ounce of their extra time above and beyond that we've put into making this such a wonderful place. That I loved every second of being here. We should be proud of everything that we've done and we've achieved. I want to just say thank you to you all.
Thank you, Shay. Any other public comment? Well, thank you for all the words. The agenda, we'll review the agenda briefly. Item 2 is review the agenda. Item 3 is review and approve the minutes. Item 4 will be review and discussion of the revised budget. Item 5 will be review and discussion of closing procedures. Item 6 will be review and discussion of school closing dates. Item 7 will be discussion of agenda for the next meeting. And then item 8 we will adjourn. On to...
Through the chair,
Yes.
I would suggest that we move the order of the items, that a brief update on the budget is going to lead to a discussion of closing dates, and then it makes more sense to follow the identification of the closing dates with review of the process that we would need to implement to put that in place. So I suggest that we begin with just simply a quick update of how the financial situation has changed due to the situation we'd be put into in terms of it being enrollment driven entirely, and that's going to cause a move very quickly by the board to consider a closing date.
Okay, so that way we'll be moving to item number 5. Thank you, Tony. Basically, item 6 rather, review and discussion of closing dates. just to back into this discussion, I think since the BESE meeting of November 27th, where Commissioner Chester first mentioned that he may put forth a motion to revoke the charter, was very, very unexpected by all of us, because in the prior 2 years or 3 years, he'd been, these past 2 years that I've been to, he had seen other board members actively press for revocation. He said, no, we're going to give Gloucester Community Arts Charter Schools for 5 years. Everything needs 5 years to start up, and I think that was an operating assumption that we all had. And it's an important one because our landlord, Mick Lafada, is a perfect example of someone who would say, well, you need 5 years to start up, because everything would take 5 years. Who in their right mind is going to support a business that only is going to last for 3 years? What faculty and staff are going to make a commitment to a place that's only 5 years? What family is going to make a commitment, 3 years or so? And I think this is one thing that's been particularly difficult for all of us, was the sudden change in insurance that happened. His rationale was that our enrollment in the first year went from 60 to the second year 130, and then the next year, this year that just started, it went from 130 down to 120 by the time school. But I think we had
Actually, 130.
130, excuse me, thank you, John, I don't know if you did. But then we had a bunch of people that wanted to choice out to other schools because of the unique opportunities in other nearby schools. So that being the case, by the time there was a site visit happened where we had new faculty, and I think Beth Forge, our Director of Education, had done a wonderful job preparing them, but they were new. And so when the site visit happened very, very early in the year, we hit a terribly critical site visit. When I appeared before the BESE on the 27th of November, I asked them to please come back later in the year and see how this group was working together, see how they gel, and see the very powerful effect it would have. I was also very proud of the fact that I was able to say that our MCAS scores for ELA, in I believe the 6th grade, was the highest in
Whole middle school.
In whole middle school was the highest, and that we also had a group of students who came here, and their first MCAS years, there was a group that were at the bottom, which is the warning. 85% of them moved up into higher grades under the MCAS, so there are 4 systems: warning, needs improvement, proficient, and top one extremely proficient. So it was very, very promising in terms of the progress that was being made. Nonetheless, again, it didn't seem to have any purchase to it, because once the revocation report came out, we actually tried to have a meeting, and then that was denied, and it was very clear that the die had been cast. So we were now in a situation of, in a discussion with the charter school office about where we would, what our options were. Very shortly after the revocation, the word revocation, we did start to see, I think, some attrition. Is that correct? And furthermore, was that there was the bank was now getting very nervous because again, our charter school financial sustainability model is based on enrollment. If we lose people, we lose dollars. So we were in a situation where we really became dependent upon the state to help us. We were going to have a suspension of our line of credit. They needed to make their normal payments. Thought that was going to be all set, but it didn't work out that way. We were told that we've been basically overpaid, and it's very possible we didn't get any payment at all for the second payment of the year. At that point, we had no line of credit. We had possibly no money coming from the state, and we really had very, very few options. And we worked very hard to reduce our costs, to reduce our cash flow, again, make a lot of bent over backwards to help this thing be successful. The idea that if we just make it through this year, we'd have year 4 and 5 would be very successful. But we never really had any negotiating power here. I mean, we had to basically negotiate to close at the end of the year, and that's why we surrendered the charter. Because at the time, we hoped that it would keep the school going through the year. In subsequent negotiations, and even as of the last board meeting, we were planning on the June closing, because the agreement was that this would be good for the kids and the students here. It would be good for the parents, it would be not disruptive. It would be good for the local district because they wouldn't have this influx suddenly of children. It would be good for the state because it would show that they work together with these, three stakeholders in the area to come to a good solution for the situation. As time went on, we suddenly found ourselves with a little shifting sand under our feet where we thought we would, by starting the charter, we would have a payment for so much money. But the state came back and said, we're not comfortable advancing this much, we need to advance you less. And again, with no line of credit and with the possibility of decreasing enrollment, the numbers just started going against us very, very quickly. So we had even discussed very briefly the idea of a February to a mid-break closing date that would at least give people the time to get through another period of time here at the school, and then release the children back into the district or wherever they wanted to go during the break, which would have been very, very, I think, a very good plan. However, again, with the numbers, we don't really know what the numbers are right now because of the dropping enrollment. I mean, we have probably people calling, looking for their files, but when the school opens on Monday, we are fully expecting to see a very large number of people come and ask for their documents, their records, and pull that out. At that point, a real vicious cycle has begun because now we have a lower student headcount. The state will be much less inclined to advance us any more money because we won't run it, because we won't have more students, we'll have less. So at this point now, we are in conversations that I think are, the focus now is closing the school in a much more compressed time frame than we originally considered. In our discussions today with the office, I think we looked at the numbers and what was realistic. We're not going to get a line of credit back. We're not going to find an investor at this point. We've got a real concern for keeping the kids here. If more kids were leaving, we've got a real concern with making sure the teachers were here are paid properly. And with that in mind, we're now reviewing a much earlier close date, which is going to basically come on after some discussion today, on January 11th.
Yeah, I think just it's important to point out in terms of some change that I think needs to take place. That by having the school completely enrollment dependent and parents being clearly indicated that students who wish to go back to elementary schools in local district would be a first come, first served basis. So the longer you stayed in the charter, even if you felt it was good in terms of a healthy transition, the longer you stayed, the greater risk there would be that the seat you needed for your child in a particular grade, in a particular elementary school, might not be available, and that this would cause families to feel under pressure to leave as quickly as they could in terms of getting their file and getting it over to the local school. On top of that, in terms of the state formula, which I believe needs to change, that where the sending district is funded 100% for every child that leaves in year 1 and 25% in every year after that for the next 5. So the thinking clearly from a state perspective has gone into house to support the local district that hosts the charter with regard to change. But where charters do sometimes fail or where change needs to take place, that there is no support whatsoever, that it will stay enrollment-based and enrollment-based only. And that puts the program at risk. And I think it's important to note that it was actually our own faculty and teachers who, from their experience, indicated, along with the school leader, Beth Bell-Forge, that this type of slow disintegration of program really was not healthy for children. And that we had just gotten to the point, which is what makes it hurt so badly, of really wonderful delivery of the program for children on a daily basis and the kind of support that not only the children needed, but that the staff needed in terms of the depth of experience and depth of staff in the building. And that we couldn't, in terms of responsible closure, carry on something which was going to result in this sort of uncontrollable spiral. And so with no options really on the table at all, we simply have to, as a board, discuss suggested dates for closure, and that's what's caused us to be here tonight. And hopefully something can be done about that so that no charter and no kids go through this again. And those who need to learn from it will do so. But I think that at the moment we need to have a motion for a closure of the school on January 11th, Friday the 11th, and then discussion of what that would mean in terms of other plans for the board, if that makes sense.
So Tony, if I could just add to what you were saying, I think it's important for parents particularly, and I think for staff to understand that we put forward the motion at the last board meeting to surrender the charter, but there was a provision attached to that, which was that we wanted to have some further discussion with the state about providing some stable funding so we could meet our commitment and also act in the interests of our staff and in the interests of our kids and frankly in the interests of the city to maintain the school through the end of the school year. We did take that case to the state. James has done incredible work, hours and hours, days and days, through the entire December vacation, over Christmas, through Christmas Eve. And I kid you not, this is exactly what's happened. His amazing commitment to making this case and trying to make this happen in the best way possible for everybody we're representing, including the city here. And it's been very frustrating to come back today with nothing. I understand the state has to operate within certain regulations and requirements, and there's a funding formula set up the way it is, but it is certainly not acting in the best interests of the very kids that the state should be committed to serving as well. So I just want to make the case here, though, that make it really clear that we have acted, taken every possible step, including discussions with the mayor and discussions that she's gone to higher levels to try to make this happen in the best way possible. And it really is not turning out that way. A number of us have spent a good number of hours and days ourselves trying to negotiate this, trying to do whatever we possibly could to take the steps and to ask others who might have more of a voice in this to make the case as well. But we're in a position right now where we either see the program dismembered by a funding formula that demands that it be based entirely on enrollment and that our enrollment is declining, and watch our staff laid off person by person, week by week, over a period of time, or we maintain our commitment to the staff and to our kids and their safety of those kids, and make a responsible decision about closing the school together intact with some level of grace and dignity out of all of this. So that's kind of the spirit of where all this has gone over the last bunch of weeks. And I think it's important for the city to know that. I hope that I'm not just talking to this empty room here, not that you're all not here, but I think this needs to be understood across the city that we've acted in good faith to try to make this happen in the best way possible, and have really met with obstacles at almost every turn.
Yeah, I'd like to add that for the general public's consumption that a few days ago we received a letter about closure procedures, and that has also, as Dave pointed out, been compressed into days instead of weeks. And we are going to make a reasonable effort to make sure that those 7 pages and the checklist therein are completed in a timely manner so that we can be responsible to the parents and the families and the staff and the children in this school, but also to the Leicester Public Schools, as well as to the state of Massachusetts. But to presume that those 5 out of the 7 pages can be done before the 11th is a bit of a reach.
Just as a point of clarification, first of all, Art, thanks for, we can address the closing procedures because that's on the agenda a little later, but I think the charter is still effective in June. Trustees will meet again and again and again and deal with all the various issues that they have to deal with in closing the school. The fact that it's students and faculty last day, whatever day we decide on, is a different issue there. But there's no question about it. We've been through a lot of work, as Dave pointed out, and there's still a lot more work to do. So anyway, with that in mind, it's
entertain a motion for consideration of January 11th as the closing date.
Is there any
Second it.
Any discussion?
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, well, again, I want to emphasize one of the main points was that one of the discussions was to sort of take the school apart bit by bit over a longer period of time. And the faculty, the head of education didn't want that, the faculty didn't want that. And I think, bottom line, and most importantly of all, it just would not have been a good environment for the children. I know that a lot of people are having a difficult enough time with this as it is. That would probably just make it worse. So I think the idea to, as much as none of us like even thinking about this, that closing earlier rather than trying to hang in there with lopping off something here and lopping off something there and watching more children leave every day, it would be a terrible way for the school to end. And this school has been such an incredible culture of support and nurturing and togetherness. It's just not the way we want to end. So,
Take a vote.
Just as a couple more notes on this, I think it's important to understand that we are trying to coordinate with the district. We've had some communication with the superintendent, with the mayor about, and also I talked with the school committee member today as well about some of what we're trying to put in place and to try to make this move ahead as smoothly as possible. It remains to be seen whether there'll be actually a meeting where our parents will meet with school officials or not. We're trying to set something up like that would help with that. In the meantime, I think it is important for parents to understand that it would be advisable to start contacting local schools to look for alternative placement for their kids, so that they'll have a plan in place for when school here actually wraps up.
And just, I want to note the enormous hours that Cindy Marie put into producing multiple scenarios for different budgets, different enrollments, hours and hours of time. James, particularly recognizing you and Dave and Art and everybody, Susan Hoax being in here doing files today and folders on the copier machines, just for to put in massive hours to help with this. Aaron, Ira, Jay, everybody. But I think, really amazing effort. And just to have it, everything you think is solid get changed at the last minute has been depressing and very hard to deal with. In terms of the families, the files are going to be ready, I think. Art mentioned earlier, Saturday, Sunday this week, so that early next week when families need them, they will be available to pick up. We'll be doing our best, everybody, to help with that transition. So
we're calling for a vote now.
Does anyone want to put any more questions?
Yeah.
This is an open discussion, so if anyone wants to know why that date or what the school's going to look like, sorry, this is a board discussion. I'm free to talk about it afterwards. That's fine.
No.
But I think this has really come about on account of the numbers. How do we get how we keep the faculty together so the experience for the children here is solid for, to the very end. And this 11th is the number. That is the date. There's no way to extend that further, and there's certainly no desire to do it any earlier. This is absolutely what nobody wanted here at this table, or the people that work in these four corners of this beautiful building every day. But at this point, I think it would be irresponsible for us as a board to try to do anything but to come up with a very realistic contingency plan for what the future of the school should be. So we've had a couple preliminary discussions, and I think it just seems that the 11th, which is a week from Friday, would be the time for the school to close its operations, for the faculty and the children to say goodbye, have some time together. And have this be the smooth transition that we had originally hoped when we first entered into this agreement to sort of the charter. Any other discussion? Should we take a vote? Motion.
So the motion is to close the school, and that the board moves to set the closing of the school, the date for the closing of the school as Friday, February 11th. January 11th, 2013.
All in favor? The record show. What was unanimous? There are a set of procedures and protocols that we need to review on this. We don't have to decide everything tonight, but we have to make the board aware of what our responsibilities are as trustees, given the outlook and the timing, the time frame. So I would ask everyone to take out the package that starts with the letterhead of fundamental secondary education. This particular document was written in anticipation of a regular, I think, through the end of the year closing. So there are certain things that are not going to be appropriate for us, NCAS, things like that. But I just want to go through some of the points. I know, Tony, you've done a lot of work reviewing this. Is there
Yeah, I think there are a couple of key ones that we need to just review tonight and have a motion to approve either individually or simply as a group. To designate a school contact person or a member of the board who will be the contact for DESE or DSE through the closing process. James, it has been you up to this point as chair of the board, but I don't know if that is something that can you continue to function in that way? Would you like to have some discussion about it?
I can certainly use some help, in terms of that. And I think the other thing is that I think we can also just allow this to be. I don't think we need to make a decision on this right away if we can.
Okay.
But we can certainly talk about this for a bit. Tony, what would you see as the job responsibilities? What would some of the things that would come up, the responsibilities be to this?
Well, there are a number of pieces. I think eventually we could send a list out to everyone as we start to do a hard asset audit today in terms of just a count of property in the school, but deciding how that's going to be dealt with and doing some work on that I think is going to be important. But I think more, and we don't have to decide those tonight, but just defining who the central conduit will be for all of us, whether it's information in for the DOE or into the school, just to make sure we have just one person who handles the formal communications with the department. And we don't have to do, as you say, Jim, you don't have to decide it tonight, but it is one of the ones we need to do fairly quickly. At the moment, they're really going through you, I think.
Correct.
One comment about we don't have to do it at the moment. There is one that we have to do at the moment, which is number 4. This is related to your work, Eric. The draft minutes for tonight have to be in the CSO office on Monday, according to this. And going forward, every time we have a meeting, I think that's got to be treated.
Okay, thanks very much for adding that.
Eric, you and I could talk about that. Yeah, there's a couple of other questions I had too on this. One is that there's a requirement here about continuing to provide student reports. So my question is just how that's going to be handled, given that Nikki Champagne has taken another job at this point, and she's been responsible for that up to this point. So I think we do need to decide that fairly quickly as to who's going to be taking that up.
Will Beth be here during next week?
Beth's returning from vacation on Saturday, and she'll be here all next week. Yes.
Yeah, I would add to what they're saying, with the caveat that it has to be somebody who has intimate knowledge of Rediker, because that's the report card
That's right.
making system.
That's right.
Yeah, I think there's some leadership internal decisions to be made, which is that given that the last report card period was not that long ago, will that be the last formal report issued? In which case, there are hard copies in every file at the moment. But Nikki had indicated that she's willing to come in and help us with producing those report cards again if we need to, and just running that report list. So I think we'll be okay there. But there should be a hard copy report card from the most recent reporting period in every file.
And I can attest to that being a fact, undisputable fact.
I bet you can.
Thanks to your help and Susan's help. So that is underway, by the way, and we will have that completed by no later than noon on Sunday.
The other immediate one, there's some others around identifying a person for the long term who will take care of the archives, records, and recommendation of the charter office was that some schools have talked to legal firms, their legal counsel, to see if they, pro bono, would simply arrange for the protection and security of those archives. So I think we can discuss that at a later meeting. Don't need to deal with it now. He did recognize that there is a discrepancy here where under 10A, they say we need to appoint someone for 10-year term, and then in the very next sentence, 10B, it indicates for a 60-year term. So he said he believes they are addressing that or have addressed it, and it's only for a 10-year period. So we can deal with that separately. Then under 11, the setting up of a separate checking account to deal with closing costs, he indicated that there wouldn't be enough funds there in all likelihood to set up a separate account, that the school shouldn't take the expense of setting up yet another account at this point, and they would work with us on the best steps to take there. Date of the last day of regular instruction, I think obviously we'd like to find the last day, and that it needs to be left up to the school leadership and the faculty to figure out how to use those days. There is a suggestion, which I don't think we need to discuss right now, but in terms of providing some of the parent association resource to have some event for all families, even those that may have already left to attend schools today, to come back and have some sense of closure. So that's something that school leadership can work on, but will probably come to us for some support on that. There were 2 meetings we needed to schedule. One is to have a meeting with all stakeholders, a public meeting to discuss the closing of the school And I think we should decide that tonight. No, they are aware of that. They said that's fine. The suggestion was to consider doing that on Monday. There's a meeting scheduled for faculty at 3:30 on Monday, and to have a meeting in the early evening for so that all families could come back, and working families for that. And any feedback Dave as a parent with kids. I don't know if you want to talk about whether to do that on Monday.
Well, I think it's less as a parent and more as a concern about what's happening for staff that day, because we're talking about a full day of school. There's a meeting after school to discuss unemployment benefits and so forth, in addition to whatever planning there needs to be done for the rest of the week as well. So my question is just whether it would make sense maybe to do it on Tuesday, to do a meeting with parents on Tuesday, just to give a little breathing space in there for the staff.
My thought is if whatever parents want to come, I'm sure a lot of parents are already bailed out of this and have their plans. Do you think a member of the Gloucester Public School System should be here, one of the administrators, superintendent, or someone?
Yeah, the charter office suggests that. Dave's actually already been in contact with both the mayor and the superintendent in several
I think the
conversations.
superintendent should step foot in here. I mean, he knows procedure, and I think he should be here, and the questions should be asked him on procedures for those people that are going back to the Gloucester Public Schools.
I think there's a willingness to have.
What's that?
I think there's a willingness for the superintendent or to have representation from the district
Here.
To be part of a meeting here.
Yeah, that's great.
Nobody's committed to that because there wasn't a date set for that, but
Yeah.
I think there's interest in doing that.
Yeah.
So Dave, should we wait to, I don't know if we have to formally set the date or simply indicate that we need to get it scheduled, but should we, in order to
Should be the beginning of the week.
superintendent can come, would you feel comfortable if we left that in your hands to maybe talk to the superintendent and work something out there, and
Sure.
we'll just go with whatever works? That makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
As for Tuesday evening, the 8th,
Possibly Tuesday evening.
yeah, it depends on his availability too. He may
Of
have.
course.
Right.
I'll be out of town. Sorry. Unless you want to do it Monday.
I think Monday's going to be a full day for the faculty, so it's when all the
Whatever.
So thank you, Ira.
Nothing I can do. Really.
Exactly.
There's also discussion in here, in this procedures about, there's an annual report that's due eventually, and also a financial audit to wrap things up. So I think the question needs to possibly go back to the department about funding for that audit.
What page is that item on, Dave?
The
Numbers are at the bottom.
final audit is on, yeah, is that where the audit is? Yeah, it's in the last page, page 5.
Okay.
Top of page number 14. So I don't think we have a ready answer for that, but we do need to be thinking about making that happen and how we're going to fund that.
Didn't they just complete an audit?
They did. They asked is our auditor, and so we will have to discuss with them how we can bring this in, better economics.
Or whether the state audit, it's going to be for 12 weeks or more, would qualify for that. I don't know. Probably not.
Well, maybe, I think the financial audit is sort of the main part of it. It's just that you have to close the books ultimately, and then they're going to want to review those. So that'll be the main part of it. And then, as I say, the management of the assets in the building, and that'll may be a longer process. But those are the two big pieces there. I think in terms of student records and management of the transition, the plans are already in place and being supported. Thank you to everybody for that.
So, has there been discussion with Cindy about some of the aspects of this, because some of it clearly falls on her?
So she has offered to do a lot of work to support the kind of data collection that goes into the auditors would require. So,
Yeah, she said she prepared the books and materials for the financial audit.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it looks like there's additional work in addition to the audit around finances as well.
Should we send a meeting date up?
for which,
We need
to follow up on all these details.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that, I mean.
Like next Wednesday?
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking, because, I mean, we advanced this meeting a bit to get on top of this issue.
Yeah.
And I think normally we'd have a meeting the second Wednesday. So when we get to the last item on the agenda, which is the next meeting, I think that's good advice, that we should set up another trustees meeting for a week from tonight, to see what kind of answers we have, for all these. Because there are a lot of details here that we need to have some answers to. We're not
This
gonna-
stuff is not going to be completed by next Friday.
Oh,
No, there's no expectation.
There's no
it is.
expectation.
Right.
It's not, again, the charter is good still through June, and a lot of these responsibilities will keep on going. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, I'll just point out too that at the top of page 5 on this, it says, within 60 calendar days of closure decision,
Oh, okay.
we get to do. And another one is, the last section is prior to finalization of closure. Certain things have to be done. Some of this may be worked and adapted because today's the second, so 9 days from today the school's over. So I don't mean that students are not going to be.
Let me ask you a question, just, and this may not be in order, but all this property here in the school, the desks, the chairs, et cetera, the state actually owns that. Will they move that out of here and store it or send it, or?
We talked to Cliff.
I mean, are they responsible for that?
We talked to Cliff about it today. It's actually, he believes it's actually the schools to decide how it will be dealt with. So he's going to get back to us in terms of that some of these assets may be able to be liquidated as well to support the school in terms of some additional costs. There are, as Dave pointed out, going to be costs around an audit and maybe other costs that need to be dealt with. And any of the assets available to the school can be used to take care
Sell
of
it to the
disposal
Gloucester Public
costs.
Schools.
I beg your pardon?
Sell it to the Gloucester Public Schools. Wholesale. There's a lot of good stuff here.
and one of the responsibilities is to inventory all of it. I mean, so there's, so we
Yeah.
know it's here, and this is like a bankruptcy situation almost. And so,
Yeah.
you get to know what assets are there, so we're undertaking that right now. So-
And I'd like to add to that, Ira, that James's arranged for the inventory to be done. And I've spoken to the people about that they do this much, and then the teachers get to look at those inventories to say, that picture on the wall is mine,
Oh,
and da-da-da, this belongs to me, I paid da-da-da for this. So the teachers will have a chance to take their personal property before any inventory sheets leave this building.
oh, of course. Yeah, they should.
Thanks.
James, looking at this, there are a bunch of financial strings to it, I guess is the way to say it. Was there anything thought about as part of the closing process to have any funding left over after the closure on the 11th?
Well, you hope that something is left over,
Okay.
because obviously there's still some financial responsibilities, I mean, the audit being one, I mean, there's certain you want to take care of, there's certain creditors that have been very good to us, that we'd like to help very much. And so that's another thought. I mean, I don't know exactly what the process is for making those determinations. I think it's something we decide.
But it does indicate in there that if there were
I
any
understand
amounts
that.
left, it would go back to the general fund for the state. But based on what they already know about our financials, the charter office is not anticipating that there's going to be any amount of money that's going to be coming back to the general fund, needless to say.
All right. So again, I think what we'll have to do is have a little more of a in-depth review of some of these details and come up with a plan for implement them and execute them. But in the meantime, I think we've got an agreement on a couple of things that we can immediately take care of, which is the submitting the draft minutes. We will talk about the school person who will be the primary contact person to send and receive communication from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education regarding closure. We will have the faculty meet on Monday, parents on Tuesday, in terms of satisfying the stakeholder issues. And we will elect, by a vote of the board, a trustee or trustees who will be responsible for ensuring that closing procedures are completed, especially after the school employees have discharged. That's number 9, which is a very important one. We'll have to do some research on who can maintain the records. Long-term appointed trustee or individual or entity, it doesn't have to be a trustee, it can be an individual or another entity, who would take responsibility for maintaining records for a 10-year term. And then that was number 10. Number 11 is the idea of determining what other funds are left over that would be needed for legal accounting audit, and anything necessary to execute the closure protocol. Now, the number 12, again, provide written notification regarding pending closure too. I think that's something that we have to review in more detail and see what we actually are responsible for. Because a lot of these things just aren't going to be an issue, given the time of year that we're closing. But there are a lot of notification things that we have to make sure that we execute properly.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
Just a point of clarification. Number 12, provide written notification regarding the impending closure.
Yeah, I mean,
We decided that the school is closing on the 11th, so
Yeah.
do we have a letter to parents ready to go?
We do.
And something to staff, parents and staff?
Yeah.
So if we are of a mind as a group to have that happen this evening, then that takes care of A and B.
yes.
Correct.
Right.
And it does need to happen. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And perhaps out of consideration for Gloucester Public Schools, they can receive some notification or CC on that, or Dave can talk to
They'll
them.
know
I think Dave will be.
They'll know by 9 o'clock tonight.
So everyone feel comfortable with the discussions we've had so far? About
Yes.
it's all right. Why don't we,
You want to set up the next meeting?
I think we should just go ahead and do that because we still have a lot of, this contingency plan is very recently developed. I think it's realistic, which is one of the requirements that the charter school office asked us to have. And I think at this point, we've probably covered some of the important aspects. The office needed to see a decision made by the trustees about establishing a closing date. They needed to see a determination to go ahead and fulfill these closing protocol issues. I think we've committed to all of those, at least in spirit, if not in precise detail. And there's just more to look at and understand now that we're dealing with this now, rather than 2 months from now or 4 months from now.
Well, the charter office recognized that this is a document that was designed for schools that were ending at the end of the school year. So they're also working on this as a living document and trying to adjust it as necessary. So we're all in the same place, I think, on that. So there was a suggestion that next Wednesday, the 9th, we want to try and meet around the same time
Sure.
at 6:30. And maybe people can check their calendars so we can be sure we've got.
Well,
I already say you're okay.
I'll be back.
You're with us, okay, Susan? Jay?
I think so.
Okay. All right, okay.
Good. Let's see, on the 9th,
Aaron's
I have a
good.
charter meeting.
Dave? Tony? Yeah. Well, why don't we,
We're going to generate some ideas for that?
well, we should right now, actually, I mean, we've got a rough idea that we need to flesh out some of these items and action items on the closing procedure. We'll also have the benefit of knowing exactly what the student population is, you know, on Monday or Tuesday, so we can, you know, so we'll have a little more information about that.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
when we know enrollment on Tuesday, we're required to let the state know what the enrollment is on that
On the
Tuesday.
8th.
Yeah, that's right, that's one of our agreements on that.
We talked about the next meeting. We did not approve the minutes tonight,
Yeah.
which we could do. And also there's an item here about approving a budget.
Yeah, it's a revision budget right now because, you know, we're not, the purpose of the budget is to establish your financial viability. We don't have financial viability right now. It would be a revision budget. We can delegate that to someone and say, well, based on the numbers we have Monday or Tuesday, this is what we have, but this is not the,
Also, just for clarity,
Yeah.
we did send in the draft of a revised budget that showed, because they wanted to see that we could deal with an enrollment going from 110 to 90 to 70, as Art mentioned earlier in the meeting. And it was from that document that they came back with the question of, is this, you know, slow disintegration essentially of the program, where you feel the school should go, and if not, then can you have your meeting tonight to discuss a different date? And so it made the review and approval of that revised budget with, you know, progressive decline in enrollment moot, because that's not where we're going. So that's why that item doesn't require any further vote or conversation from us, because it's moot.
Okay. So, can we move to item 3 there about the minutes? So I'll move to approve the minutes of the board meeting of December 17th, 2012.
Second.
Discussion?
yeah.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Have we covered?
So can I just review what we're going to do for the agenda for
Yeah,
next?
yeah,
Oh,
sure.
sorry.
Let's do item number
Apologies,
7,
sorry.
Tony. Yeah, that's fine.
Apologies.
Closing procedures, enrollment. I had approved minutes, but we can include that. Review and revisiting the revised budget if necessary. Is there anything about,
And revisit the state document.
oh, the closing procedures?
Yeah, review the closing procedures. And see where we are.
Maybe an update on the, or not an update, but a review of the meeting on Tuesday evening? There's going to be a possible meeting?
The other just artisan note on the review of the closing procedures, just so we don't think it's just this document, that I'd like to be sure that we have developed by then a delegation of defined tasks for closure of the school, from the handling of assets, the preparation of the audit, to all these different pieces, and any others we anticipate or that school leadership and the faculty may raise, and that all of those are in a single document, and that we appropriately delegate and define dates for completion of that work, because it's really going to be an all hands-on engagement, I think, for the board.
Yeah, that's a great idea. You know, it'll be a written document, I think, that lays it out, who's doing what.
Okay, so the next question is, we think it's a good idea. Who is the we that's going to put that together?
I'm happy to draft an initial document and get it around to everybody.
Okay,
For review and input.
thank you.
So I'll just make a comment here that I had a couple of comments I wanted to make, but the main one I'd like to say is that I've had my differences with this board on occasion, and I think we've made some mistakes and missteps, and some of those are well documented in the press and otherwise. I think sometimes those have ruled the day. They've taken the headlines. But I think there's another side of the story here that hasn't been told, and that's that the work that this board has done, and the fact that everybody on this board has stuck with it. Everybody on this board had the courage where most of the people in the city did not have the wherewithal to stand up for this school and to create it and to make it possible. And some of you have come on since the early days, but nevertheless, there's been, a steady hail of opposition. There's been inevitably in a small city like this, some of that opposition can become very personal, even if it's not directed that way initially. And everybody on this board has, I'm sure, put friendships on the line, has lost friends probably through this. I know I have. I've also gained some friends. And have put your professional reputations on the line as well. And all the relationships in between that make it possible to live in the city, to be a citizen here, to participate. And I really would just want to say, we're in a downer of a meeting here, but I think it needs to be said publicly that everybody here, it's despite our missteps and so forth, really deserve huge credit for what we've done. All of you deserve credit for that and for sticking with it. And even in the midst of what, a death spiral of the school here, you're all hanging in. All of us are hanging in to make it happen, to try to carry through for the kids, for the families, to try to do the best we can by our staff. And I just really appreciate that. And we'll be disbanding as a board soon enough, but I'll remember that to the end of my days.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. That's very well said.
Thank you for everything that you did. You was the charter school secretary for the first 4.5 years of the program. Job and a half.
There's no doubt that the board work that's been done here has been on a very inspired level. We've all brought some incredible skills and talents. We have so many people in education here, so many people who are part of the community here. It's been incredible how you've all managed to deal with the adversity, and I think lack of support has been a real issue. I think that everyone has had such focus on the importance of this mission that it's been really incredibly rewarding to see that, and how people would overcome adversity because they believe so much in what they're doing. That's a very unique issue today. Certainly when we deal with the body politic on a regular basis now, we wonder what conviction there is. We hate to rehash history, but we did enter into this agreement to close the school, and we've been completely straightforward and completely fair in terms of what we've offered. We've always acted in good faith, and here we are. Thank everyone for the support that they gave the school, and most importantly, the support you're giving it now as we look at the very end. And preserve the uniqueness and the strength of the culture that we all hope to have for a much longer period of time than we now have. Thank you.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
See you next Wednesday.